Hello everyone. This week we're going to be going over chapters 19, 20, and 21. Hope everybody had a wonderful Easter, and it's raining outside right now, so it's nice that we're inside and all nice and covered and warm and ready to go over some new chapters. Chapter 19, we have licensing laws and professional affiliation. So we're going to get started with that. The projects, by the way, that were sent in, they all look great. So we're going through those and getting those all the grades posted. So hopefully everybody will get those soon. And just try to sit back and enjoy these 3 chapters. Here we go. So, rationale for licensing, and this is to get your real estate license. Does the public have a vested interest in seeing the real estate salespersons and brokers have the qualifications of honesty, truthfulness, good reputation, and real estate knowledge? So all those have to be a part of it. It was a concern that brought about real estate licensing laws as we know them today. Until 1917, no state required real estate agents to be licensed. So at that time, you didn't have to have a license. And today, with the real estate licensing, it actually brings in a lot of money for the, not only make sure that the public is safe with people knowing how to sell real estate, but also it brings in a lot of revenue for the state. People required to be licensed. In what situations does a person need a real estate license? A person who, for another and for compensation or promise of compensation. So anytime you have any money transferred, you have to have a license to do so. So it lists or offers to list, okay? This person either lists a house, sells or offers to sell a house, buys or offers to buy, and negotiates or offers to negotiate. Even if you're negotiating between 2 parties, you have to be licensed. A sale, purchase, option to purchase, exchange, auction, lease, or rental of real estate or any interest in real estate is required to hold a valid real estate license. So we have licensing types or license. One who holds a license is a licensee. Real estate broker, which I am one, a person or legal entity licensed to act independently in conducting real estate brokerage business. Okay, so you have to have your broker's license to have people underneath you as other realtors or affiliate brokers. Real estate license salesperson. Okay, this is usually if they're with the Realtor Association, they'd be called realtors. A person working for a broker to list, negotiate, sell, or lease real property for others. Then you have a sales associate. Anyone with a real estate license who works under a sponsored broker, not a license category, okay? So, again, that's a sales associate. They do not have to have a license, but they do. They can set up appointments and other things for open houses. They can't actually host open house, but they can set up times. They can do advertising and so on for the broker and also affiliate brokers. Qualifications for licensing. Okay, there's a bunch of it, and it changes. Every 2 years, we have a core course that we go through, and they mention any new things added to the licensing restrictions and board to be able to know for what's going on. To be granted a license, the following requirements are considered. Your age, you have to be at least 18. Examination, you have to take a test. Education requirements, so before the test you actually take so many hours of schooling, and then once you pass that schooling, then they'll go ahead and put you down for qualified to take the test, the state test. And then continuing education, which is every 2 years, like I mentioned before. Licensing procedure and renewal. Okay, examination services, non-residential licensing, licensing the business firm, okay? So I have my own real estate company, so I do have to have its own license, okay? And right in the back of me, it's right here. It's looks exactly like my other license, but it's got Bella Villa Properties for, so it's got its own license for the firm. Real estate regulation, which the association does, and license suspension and revocation. So on page 340, the examination. It says here, examination of the licensee, applicant's knowledge of real estate law and practices, mathematics, okay, that's part of it, valuation, finance, and the like is required for licensing granted in all states, okay, it's not just here in Tennessee. Exams typically contain 100 to 140 multiple choice questions, usually 3 to 4 hours, and allowed to complete the exam. And here in Nashville, it's called PSI. They give the exam, and it's done on computer, and you do have 4 hours to complete it, and then they'll pretty much tell you right after if you passed or failed. Now, if you fail, there's 2 different parts. There's the Tennessee Rules and Regulations part, and then the other part that is just broad, okay, broad knowledge. So they do classify it in 2 different parts, so you can actually pass or fail just half of it, okay? So if you fail one half, then you get to come back and retake that half. You don't have to take the whole exam again, which is nice. But if you fail 3 times, then you have to go and have another 12 hours of continuing education, and then you're able to retake the test again. So there is requirements on that are pretty strict. Also, education requirements on 341. Nearly all states require that licensed applicants take real estate education courses. Excuse me. At private real estate schools, colleges, and through adult education programs offered at high schools. Okay, so it's a lot of different areas. A lot of different institutions have the training courses available, so you don't have to go. Like in Nashville, there's Continuing Learning Institute, and it's called CLI, and they're one of the largest in Middle Tennessee. I actually work there, and you'll go for 2 weeks, have all the hours, they'll pass you to be able to take the state test. So they do that there. Continuing education also, its purpose is to force licensees to stay up to date in their field as a prerequisite to license renewal. Okay, so every 2 years you got to take those hours to be able to renew your license again. Very important. You do not want your license to lapse. You only have so many days to be able to, I think it's 30 days to pay the money, show that you have your continuing education, and then get your license back before it's revoked. If your license is revoked, you got to do all the educational courses again and retake the state test. There's a lot to it, and you do not want that to happen. So make sure that you stay up with when your license expires. So, licensing procedure. Okay, that's the next one up here. An application for real estate salesperson or broker license can be obtained either in person or by mail from a state real estate licensing department. Okay, the character aspects of the applicant are checked, so you got to be a good character person. If approved, an examination date is scheduled for you. Most states offer their real estate exams monthly. The applicant is notified of the results within a few weeks if passed, but now it's all done on a computer pretty much, so it's by the time you leave, you know if you passed or failed the test. Salesperson applicants must name the broker they will be working for. So before they give you your license, you have to write down a broker that's going to actually sponsor you, that you're going to work under, and you can become a full broker after a 5 year of being underneath someone else, 3 to 5 years. think it's right at 3 now. And then you're able to take the education requirements for broker and then take the broker exam after that. And then you'll be able to run your own company if you want. If the applicant fails the written examination, the usual procedure is to allow the applicant to repeat it until passed. And again, I talked about that before. You have 3 times to take it. If not, you have to go back for more schooling. So, licensing procedure again: obtain application for real estate salesperson or broker, license in person by mail. We talked about that. Complete and return the application with required fee. If approved, you take your test, and then most states offer exams monthly, as we said. If you pass the exam, he or she must now pay the fee for the license itself. Okay, so there's, I think it's under $100, I think. Once the applicant receives license in mail, he or she can operate as a salesperson of broker, whichever the case may be. Okay. So right here it shows real estate regulation. So you have the legislature at the top. They make the laws. Every 2 years you have to go through the laws. You'll see that coming up in the next chapters. Real estate executive director is underneath that. Implements and oversees real estate regulation. That's actually they put somebody in there that has a wide range of knowledge of the real estate community. Then you have real estate commission, and then you have the real estate department, and it's just branched down like that. License suspension and revocation. Okay, license suspension: to temporarily make a license ineffective. Okay, so you cannot sell. If you're in suspension, you cannot sell any real estate. Now these are huge fines if they find that you've actually sold anything without being licensed at the time. License revocation: to recall and make void a license. So the board, the commission, real estate commission, will actually have it will be just like you go to a judge and jury situation. They're the jury and judge, and they'll say, okay, what'd you do? If there's anything against you by another party, you might get fined, or the worst is you actually lose your license. So there is a body that takes care of that. Reasons for license suspension and revocation include violation of State Real Estate Act, misrepresentation or false promises, undisclosed dual agency, commingling, can't do that, we'll be talking about that with funds, acting as an undisclosed principal, false advertising, obtaining a license by fraud, negligence, incompetence, failure to supervise salespeople, and that's brokers usually. License suspension and revocation also. There are 3 common solutions to provide financial compensation for any losses suffered by a wrongly party. Okay, so you have bonds used to provide payment, recovery fund, all right, a state-operated fund that can be tapped to pay for uncollected judgments against real estate licensees, and then errors and omissions insurance. Now you have to get this insurance before you ever start selling any kind of property. It's a mandatory through, at least here in the state of Tennessee. This may solve limitation issues provided by bonds and recovery funds. So it's kind of like you know how Aflac will give you insurance that covers the gap between your regular insurance and what is owed. So the errors and omissions would actually come in and pay that fine or whatever else. So we have affiliating with a broker. Okay, you got to find a brokerage. Either you can go to the major brokerage houses like Century 21 or Remax. But first we have training. Complement, enhance, and encourage your personal development. Okay, so they want to make sure that you're trying to keep up with training when you go to one of those houses. Compensation, usually a percentage of earned commissions. Okay, that's how you get compensated. your broker will actually say, okay, well, we'll do an 80-20 split. Okay, so you get to keep 80% of the commission, and then the broker gets the other 20%. So that's their payment there. That 20% that you give them is actually covering all the brick and mortar place, and also the insurance that they have to hold, all the paper or computer stuff that you actually use there at their business. But compensation, again, 100% commission. Usually that's not the case until you become a main broker and you sell your own properties, or you hit a certain echelon of sales throughout the year. Some of them do individual, to where if you sell up to 10,000 with commission, after that you can go up to 100%. It all depends on the broker and the deal that you work back and forth with them at the beginning. So 100% commission compensation arrangement where the agent does not share any commission with the sponsored broker. Okay, and usually they will let people do that. Some of their larger sales people that have many homes can get to that point. Support. What services does the broker offer? Okay, and then franchise offices, and these are national identification. Franchised offices like Remax and the other big ones. They're pretty much a franchise. They go. You hear them all over the United States. So an independent contractor. When you are selling real estate, you are an independent contractor. There's no taxes taken out. There's none of that. You have to actually pay your quarterly taxes, and so you actually own the business. Okay, so they're not going to really hold your hand doing anything. These companies, you are everything. So you're running your own business. One who contracts to do work according to one's own methods and is responsible to his employer for the results of only that work done. Okay. Paid only if a sale produces a commission. Okay, they're not going to pay you if you're not selling houses. You have to sell houses and get commissions to be able to get paid through the broker. And also responsible for income taxes and Social Security. You got to pay all that in with your commission. So it's exactly like running your own company. Nobody's there every day watching you. That's why the ethics are so important with real estate. And we get continuing education on that every 2 years, as I said before. Realtor. So this is a registered trade name, okay? Just because you sell real estate doesn't mean you're a realtor. You have to be an associate of the real estate team out there, and it's a member of the National Association of Realtors, okay? It's an NAR for short, and not synonymous with the real estate agent, okay? Synonymous, sorry about that, with real estate agent. The Code of Ethics first adopted in 1913, so it's been around a long time. And you'll see here coming up in the book all the different code of ethics that they go by. Graduate Realtor Institute, GRI, designation is awarded by taking education courses sponsored by NAR. Okay, so there's all these different classes out there that you can take under this association. Also continuing education through the different companies like Continual Learning Institute in Nashville that I work for. They have all these different designations that you can put on your card. So it could be GRI, or just, there's like 10 different designations out there that I know of. Realist. So this is the National Association of Real Estate Brokers, okay? NAREB. Members use this trade name realist, promote high standards of service and conduct, okay? Protect the public against unethical, improper, or fraudulent real estate practices. So that's National Association of Real Estate Brokers. So here within the chapter, they have non-residential licensing. It goes into a few other things here, but we hit all the high points on it. that's with getting a license, you have to just make sure you keep it up. Again, you don't want it revoked because you can't sell real estate after that. So let's go on in and do the review questions here for chapter 19. We're going to do the first 5. And before we do that, I want to give you the attention. I want to talk about figure 19.2 on page 356. This is actually the Code of Ethics and Standards of Practice of the National Association of Realtors. Okay, so just browse through here. This is actually a class that we do every 2 years that go over every one of these ethic standards. And you see it's page after page after page, and also they will revise it. So sometimes something will be taken out or something will be added. So we have to know all these ethic rules. They say it saves the public from people not knowing what's going on. So on page 364, we have the review questions. Number 1, which of the following may conduct a real estate brokerage business without a proper license? And that's going to be D, neither A or B. Okay. Number 2, a person who sells real estate for others, and that's C, both A and B, must be licensed in order to collect compensation. We talked about that, and need not to be licensed if no compensation is involved. They can set up appointments for you, they can do other things like that, but they don't have to have a license as long as they don't get a check of compensation. Okay? Which of the following could be licensed as a real estate broker? And it's E, all the above on number 3. Corporation, partnership, actual person, sole proprietorship. Okay? Number 4, which of the following is not a real estate license category? And it's C, attorney in fact. All right. Number 5, a real estate listing is a contract between, and I think we know this one already, the owner and the listing broker. Okay? It's not the sales broker, it's the listing broker. Remember that, because the broker always owns the listings. Okay? So if you stop working for a brokerage, okay, all those places that you have listed with that brokerage, all those houses, stay with that brokerage unless you talk with the broker and say, okay, well, let me go ahead and bring these over with me because, you know, is that okay? It's all negotiation between you and your broker. But the broker actually owns all the listings. So they can keep all those and say, hey, get out. So it's up to, it's negotiation between you guys. Chapter 20. Let me go to chapter 20 here. And chapter 20 is the principal-broker relationship, okay, employment. So we're going to keep on hitting on all this brokerage situation. So, listing agreement. Okay, this is huge. This is your agreement between your person you're wanting to sell their house for and yourself. Everything has to be listed on there. You can't leave anything out. Real estate listing, okay? An employment contract between a property owner and a real estate broker, okay? Brokerage commission. Brokerage commission, an agreed amount of compensation the owner agrees to pay the broker and not set by law. Okay, this is all negotiated between. The amount of the fee is negotiated between the owner and the broker. A typical compensation fee in the United States is 5% to 7% of the selling price. Okay, all depends on what area you're in. You could be selling $1 million homes, or you could be selling $200,000 homes, or even less. A lot of times, the higher the home, sometimes the commission rate's a little bit less because of how much money is being dealt with. But typically here in Tennessee, we have about 6% rate that we do. 3% goes to the seller agent, and then 3% goes to the buyer agent. They go ahead and split that commission between them. Okay. So if you get a 3% commission through selling property, you give 20% of that amount to to your broker, and then you get to keep the 80%. And that's an 80-20 split. They all split differently. It all depends, again, on how much you sell. If you get to a certain point, then you get to go up to maybe 90-10 split, or it'd be 100% that you get to keep. All depends on your broker situation between you. Listing contract types, okay? This is on page 370. Let's go over here on 370. First one, exclusive right to sell, okay? Exclusive right to sell. The listing broker is entitled to a commission no matter who sells the property during the listing period. Okay? This is exclusive right to sell. That's what usually I'll put down on our contract. That way, no matter who sells the property during the listing period, you still get a commission on it. This is the most common type of listing. Here's an example of the principal-broker relationship employment. So you see the price, you see what the terms are, and then the consideration and all those stuff. So every one of these has their own form that you fill out. And get across all your T's and dot your I's. Make sure that everything is filled out on them. Exclusive agency, okay? This is similar to the exclusive right to sell, except that the owner may sell property herself during the listing period and not owe a fee to the broker. So if they say, hey, I got neighbor Fred over here that wants to buy the house. Well, if you sign this exclusive agency, then that lets them go ahead and sell it to them, and you get 0. So that's why I get the other one, because no matter who sells the property, I still get a commission on it, okay? And that's, of course, that's why it's the most popular, because who would not do that? I guess some people do. The broker may be less enthusiastic under this form of listing, I'm sure. Open listing, okay, carries no exclusive rights. Whoever sells a property will earn the commission, okay? It's, brokers are reluctant to develop a sales effort, okay? So they're really not going to put too much effort into it if it's an open listing. We don't usually use open listings here in Tennessee. So, a net listing, created when an owner states the price he or she wants for the property and agrees to pay the broker anything above this amount as commission. And that's usually not used in Tennessee either. We usually do the exclusive right to sell listing. Advance fee listing and advance cost listing. The advance fee listing, which the broker gets paid in advance and charges an hourly rate. Okay. There's different companies that are doing that now. Advance cost listing covers only out-of-pocket costs incurred by the broker with either the advance fee or advance cost arrangement. Okay. The broker can still charge a commission based on sales price. Okay. Before we go any further, I'm sure you guys are saying, he didn't say a code word for the last chapter. But the code word for chapter 19 is principal. Okay? Now, not principal of a school, but principal. And you'll see here soon how that's different. Chapter 19, code word, principal. Okay? All right, here we go. Exclusive authority to purchase. All right? Exclusive authority to purchase. This is an agreement where the broker works for the buyer. Primary responsible is to the purchaser, and the principal is now the buyer. Okay? A little confusing there, but just know this is the definition for exclusive authority to purchase. Principal is now the buyer, and there's a buyer agency within it. Okay? Now this is a principal-broker relationship employment sheet. Again, there's a general description of the property, price that's going to be offered, and so forth. So I just keep on going through there. There's a, on 373, you can look at it a little bit closer on 373. So multi-listing service. Okay, this is one of the most wonderful things that we deal with. Okay, I had more time, because I don't want you guys to have to watch hours and hours of me, but I would bring up the MLS for Tennessee, multi-listing service. It's a service among realtor members, okay, to offer compensation to other member brokers and increase the market exposure of the listed property. So on the multi-listing service, what they used to have is a book, and the book was huge, and it would come out every 3 weeks, and it would have printed in there all the new listings that came out. So the real estate agents would have to go through the book and see all the houses out there, what's actually on the market. Okay, now they do it all on computer, which is wonderful. I can access it from my smartphone. I can be anywhere. I can be out in a desert in the middle of no man's land and pull up the multi-listing service, and I can tell, hey, Cactus, this house is for sale right here. Here's some pictures of it. Here's all the stats about it, how many bedrooms, everything. You can pull up the tax records in there about all the different sales that happened with the house, all the different history, all the dimensions. It's got everything you ever wanted on the MLS. So, wonderful thing. Broker compensation, okay? The broker earns a commission at whatever point in the transaction the broker and owner agree upon. Okay, it's all negotiated all the time. There's no set commission rate because that's illegal. You can't set commission rates. So it's always negotiable. Usually occurs when a ready, willing, and able buyer is produced. That is something that's a huge definition of compensation. Usually occurs when a ready, willing, and able buyer is produced. That's when you get your commission. Ready, willing, and able buyer, a buyer who is ready to buy at the seller's price, okay, and terms, and who has the financial capability to do so. All right? You see that money there, that show me the money. That's what the broker says. Procuring cause, okay? The one whose effort originated the procurement of the sale. All right? And that's pretty cute with those two at the board. Terminating an employment contract, okay? An employment contract is usually terminated by one of the two following ways. Either a mutual agreement between the two or abandonment. All right? 377. Go over here to 377 on this one. With abandonment. Thus, if a broker acts counter to the principal's best financial interest, the employment is terminated. No commission is payable, and the broker may be subject to a lawsuit for any damage suffered by the principal. Now, who is the principal? The client. Principal is the client of the broker, okay? So any damage that is suffered, a lawsuit can actually occur. Lawsuits from $1,000 up to, some cases, $1 million in lawsuits. So that's why being a broker, you have to really stay on top of your salespeople, because if they mess up, even though you didn't do it, it's still your responsibility. So a lot of people do not like to be a broker over other salespeople. I'm a broker over my wife. She's part of the sales company, but we can handle things together, and we pinch hit back and forth and work on cases, and works out pretty good. Market exposure. I'd like to say on page 374, property listed with a broker whose mutual listing service member receives the advantage of great sales exposure. Okay, and this is dealing with the multi-listing service, which in turn means a better price and a quicker sale, because everybody's out there, everybody's looking at it. Sometimes by the time it hits, it'll sell in one day because people see it out there. Now they have a section in the multi-listing service that says coming soon. All right, so some properties, before they're even on the market, sell, and if that happens, then usually the commission that the salesperson is in contract with, like I said before, it could be 6%, okay? They'll give 3% to the seller's agent, 3% to the buyer's agent, Well, if they are the buyer and the seller before it goes on the market, then they get to keep that whole 6%. So that's why a lot of real estate agents want to try to sell before it actually goes on the market, because they get a whole lot more commission for it. In looking for a new property on behalf of the buyer, Broker B can scan the MLS computer and sort elements to locate homes by zone and area, square footage, number of bedrooms, like I said before, baths, price range, and any number of input data items that the buyer may be looking for. So it saves huge amount of time. That way, okay, I don't want to see any houses that don't have a 2-car garage. Bam! Look how many different houses that just knocks off even looking at for the buyer. I want 4 bedrooms, okay? When you put 4 in there, it's not going to show you anything that has 3 bedrooms or less. So it'll just show you 4 bedrooms and more. I want at least 1 bedroom on the main floor. Well, bam, it's not going to give you anything that doesn't have a main bedroom, 1 bedroom on the main floor. Which with the people getting older, it's more likely that you're going to sell a house that has a bedroom on the first floor than all the bedrooms up, like it used to be. Because people they don't like stairs these days. So. And then it'll give you a visual tour. The MLS does. Prospective buyer can now take a visual tour through a neighborhood without leaving the broker's office via video or the web. Okay? And there's areas in the MLS that you can stick all these videos. Most MLS systems are several photographs to be loaded into the data bank, usually about 22 photos it'll take, up to 20, around that. So that the buyer can see several pictures of the property prior to the personal inspection. So they've pretty much seen the house before they even go and look at it. And now they have virtual tours where it's almost 3-dimensional, that they go through with the camera through the whole house, as you've seen probably on the website. And you pretty much, it's like being there, you know. So it really saves a lot of time for the realtors, not having to go through and show multiple homes. They can just maybe have 3 or 4 in one day. So let's go on. Bargain brokers, okay? Now this is a flat fee broker. There's several out there now. We'll list a property, suggest a market price for the property. Write advertising, okay? Assist with negotiation, draw up sales contract, turn the signed papers over to the escrow company for closing for a fee that typically ranges from $400 to $1,500, okay? That's just taking the property, putting it on the MLS, and then doing what they can to get it sold, but it's just a flat rate that they charge. Discount broker, okay? Full service broker who charges less than the prevailing commission rates in his or her community. Now a lot of times, family and friends, if you want to go ahead and charge them a lot lesser commission, it's your call. So it's always negotiable, like I said before. Variable rate commissions. Retains the lower commission of the bargain broker, but allows commission to increase to the other broker in order to give other brokers an incentive to help market their properties. Okay, that's a variable rate commission. Okay, so key terms for the chapter: net listing, ready and willing, able buyer, all real easy stuff here. Exclusive authority purchase, exclusive right to sell, which everybody loves because no matter who sells it again, what happens? You still get a commission. So let's go over to the chapter quiz review questions. And these are on page 379. Number 1, sales associate Lee secured a written listing on a property for sale, signed by the owner and the employing broker. Is this an enforceable listing contract? So they say yes, it is. B, if all essential elements of a listing contract are present. Number 2, a real estate listing. And they're saying A on that. Is employment contract between a property owner and a real estate broker. We said that earlier. Number 3, a listing to find a buyer for each of the following types of properties will usually be for a period of time ranging from 6 months to 1 year, except, and this is with residential properties, C. A typical exclusive right to sell listing requires the owner to both A and B. Exclude other brokers from advertising or placing a sign on the property. The only one that has a sign is the listing broker, okay, or listing company. Or pay a commission if a purchase is found who agrees to buy the price and terms stipulated in the listing. All right. Again, that's C for number 4. Number 5, the amount of commission to be paid the broker for selling a property is, and that's D, stated in the listing contract. Now, if you can go ahead and do the rest of these for homework, and as you know, these are usually part of your test, so please do all of them and know them well, because some of your test comes from it. So, all right. So what's the code word for Chapter 20? The code word is broker. Okay. The code word for Chapter 20 is broker. All right. Chapter 21. And I know you've been seeing lightning in back of me. It's been pretty rainy today, so we're all just trying to stay inside nice and dry here. Chapter 21. Now, in Chapter 21, this is the principal broker relationship agency, okay? So we're talking a lot about the principal broker today. And so, this is on page 383. Agency, okay? What is an agency? An agency, this is created when one person, called a principal, okay? P-R-I-N-C-I-P-A-L. Not principal, the other principal. This is principal. Delegates to another person called the agent, okay? The right to act on his or her behalf. That's the agency. It's between them. It's to be able to act on their behalf, okay? General agency. This is the right to bind the principal to perform a particular act. All right. Principal, again, a person who authorizes another to act. Property owner. Okay. This is the property owner is your principal / client. Okay. Who's your client? The property owner. Agent. This is a person empowered to act on behalf of the principal broker. Okay. Remember, the broker still owns the listing. It's the agent that sells the house, okay? And that's why they get a portion of the commission. But the broker always owns the listings. Always remember that. Client is the principal, okay? We said that just a few minutes ago. Third parties. This is people and firms with whom the principal and agent negotiate. So that is the third parties. Establish the agency's authority, all right? Several different things here. This is written, contractual agreement. It's all written down, okay? A lot of times now the contracts are on the internet, okay? And people can do e-signature on those. I'm still old school because you have to pay a certain amount each month to have that internet access for that software. So I'm small potatoes, small company here, so I still do it with all written down, and then I'll just have everybody sign everything. I scan everything into the computer, and then I email copies. Everybody has to have an email copy of anything that's signed. That way everything stays legal and above board, because the commission at any time can come in and check out your business. All right. So in your file cabinet, you have to make sure that you keep your records up to, they say 5 to 7 years, but they can come in and say, okay, I want to see your last sales for the past year, okay? Let's say 2018, 2 years back. Well, you better have those files, or the commission's going to come down on you pretty hard. Everything's got to be in those files, saying, again, I have hard copies of it. Implied, this is a custom in the industry, okay? Ostensible, conduct of the principal. It's how the principal is going to conduct themselves. Ratification, agency established after the fact. Okay? Estoppel. This is when a principal fails to maintain due diligence over the agent who exercises powers not granted him or her. That's estoppel. Couple with an interest, okay? When an agent holds an interest in the property she is representing, okay? Now, there's a form for that, okay? So if you're selling a house for your brother or sister, or mother or father, or grandpa, anybody that you're related to, there's a form that you have to fill out saying that you are related to that party. That way everybody knows that you do have an interest in the sale of the property. Even though, it's family, you have to disclose that. Agency again, okay? We went over this before. Agency created when one person, called the principal, delegates to another person, called the agent, the right to act on his or her behalf. General agency, the right to bind the principal to perform a particular act, okay? Principal, a person who would authorize another to act, property owner, okay? The agent, again, and client, and third parties. And they're just reviewing this again because it does have the relationship agency here, okay? Again, agency relationship. You have the principal on one side, you got the agent on the other side. Skills and knowledge come from the agent to the principal, and then commission comes back to the agent from the principal, okay? So you give them all the knowledge and everything else, and they give you money. Broker's obligation to the principal. There's care, obedience, accounting, and loyalty. And then they just have COLE, if you want to remember it that way. Care, obedience, accounting, and loyalty. So care, competence and experience, all right? Obedience, lawful instructions. Accounting, for funds received. And loyalty, principal's interest first, all right? You always have to have your principal or your client interest before anybody else's, okay? And usually, all the time, not just usually, but all the time, anything that your client tells you, it's just like you're a lawyer or a doctor, you keep it to yourself. That's part of being loyal to your client. You don't tell anybody else what they tell you or disclose anything. They'll talk more about that coming up too. Fiduciary relationship between the agent and the principal. Okay, they really pound that into us, what the relationship is. Because you don't want to do any other relationship. You're always working for your client or your principal. Okay? Commingling. This is very bad. This is when a broker places money belonging to a client or a customer in a personal account. Okay? So when you open up a brokerage, you have to go to the bank and open up another account called an escrow account. And you keep any kind of funds, like earnest money that goes towards a house, totally in that account and not in your own. If you commingle those funds, then that's illegal. And you'll get in big trouble for doing so. So everything has to be accountable in that account for that. Disclosure liability, okay? Fax broker knows, okay? Said wrongly to mislead, okay? Very bad. Not said in order to mislead. Fax broker does not know. Said without checking the fax, and not said in fax not checked, all right? So that's liable. You can get sued by not, you can't say, oh, I'm sorry, I just didn't know. Well, it doesn't work that way. You're supposed to know. You're actually the person that's representing your client, the principal. So it's a major deal, not knowing what's going on. Broker obligation to third parties. Lead-based paint disclosure of homes prior to 1978. So there's a form for that. We talked about it in class before, that any house, building, whatsoever, before 1978 may have been painted with lead-based paint because the babies want to eat the paint and give them lead poisoning. There has to be a form to fill out saying that either you do know of lead-based paint or you don't know of it. and everybody checks it off, and it has to be signed at the closing. It's a very major deal because of the lead poisoning. Red flag, something that would warn a reasonable observant agent that there may be an underlying problem. Okay, it's a red flag. That's one way that you can tell your client, hey, that's a red flag over there. That ceiling that has a water spot on it, okay? It's a red flag. They'll look at that and they'll say, oh, this house must be leaking water somewhere. Where did that come from? The roof might be damaged, so on and so forth. It's good to use the term red flag with your client, and that way it really is put into their head that yes, it needs to be taken care of or looked at or inspected. Puffing, or the next one is as is. A lot of homes these days, almost every one of them, people want a full inspection, which is very good for the buyer. It tells them any kind of defects with the house. Okay. Now, if you have a very old house and you have an inspection done, the inspector is going to come in there and check his 300 different items or more that they go through to make sure everything is working correctly. Well, 250 of those items are going to be bad because this is an old house and it's, the wiring could be frayed, just a number of things. So a lot of times in a contract with an older home, real old, they'll say, okay, we offer $300,000 as is, okay? And that way the seller isn't responsible for fixing every little thing that's on that list. It's kind of like as is, I'm buying it as is. So I've had several contracts like that in the past because, what are you going to rebuild a whole home? It could be tens of thousands of dollars to get everything on that list. So a lot of people will put as is on there. Depending on the age of the home. A lot of newer homes, the list isn't usually that much. So, and you want to make sure that you're giving the people a good product that's buying your home, because again, they're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars sometimes. Puffing. All right, you see this on TV all the time when they're talking about houses. All right, statements a reasonable person would recognize as non-factual or extravagant. Okay, so you'll see on HGTV, they'll walk in and say, oh my God, this is the most beautiful fireplace I've ever seen in my life. Okay, well, that's puffing. You're puffing everything up. It's like taking a puffer fish and blowing them up and making them big. You're trying to push the house and just trying to make it more than it is, and it's called puffing. So we have buyer agency. Okay, so you have seller agency, you have buyer agency. Buyer agency, the exact opposite theory from the traditional seller representation. Okay, the buyer is the principal. Okay, who is the principal client? The buyer is. The agent owns the care of agency duties to the buyer. Okay, emphasis is on helping the buyer make informed decisions and obtain the desired product at a fair price. So you would be the buyer's go-to for everything. And you got to look out for your buyer. You can't try to sell them something that they're unaware of it being in that shape or what have you. You got to look out for them. You don't want to bring them to the most expensive house right off the bat. You want to show them all the different homes. Okay? And they talk about redlining and stuff too, so we'll talk more about that. Other important agency terms. We've got other information terms to understand the agency include the following. You have principal's obligation, so it's reimbursement, indemnification, duty of performance, and then you have the broker's sales staff, cooperating broker. All right, you have a middleman, a person who brings two or more parties together but does not represent either party, kind of like a facilitator. You have dual agency, representation of two or more principals in a transaction by the same agent. All right, and then you have a non-agency. All that's on page 392. Let me go over there and see if there's anything else. They say here, principal's obligation. The principal primary obligation is compensation. Okay. Additionally, the agent is eligible for reimbursement for expenses and related to the sale itself. All right. So anything. Sometimes if you buy the place to be furnished or make it into a kind of like a model home. They cost a lot of money to do so. So a lot of times the client will pay for that. You'll be reimbursed for that. The other two allegations of the principal, the indemnification and performance. Indemnification upon suffering a loss through no personal fault. Okay, and then performance means principal is expected to do whatever reasonably can be done to accomplish the purpose of the agency, such as referring inquiries by prospective buyers to the broker. Then you have broker sales staff. A sales associate owes the broker the duties of competence, obedience, accounting, loyalty, and full disclosure. The broker's obligations to the sales associate and compensation are compensation, reimbursement, identification, and performance. Okay, so that's between the broker and the salesperson on that. Agency disclosure, just talk about that. Agency relationship be created without written agreement. Okay, consumers must be informed about who the agent represents, so there's a clear understanding of the agent's role in a transaction. Okay, so we'll have an agency form. Everything's got its own form. Okay, and it has to be filled out. So a lot of the real estate forms, just for one house sale, could be a whole stack, 20-something pages of different forms, because everything has been gone over with lawyers, and lawsuits have happened in the past that they make sure everything is in there. So again, crossing all your T's, dotting all your I's. Many states now have required disclosure forms that every licensee is required to use. Okay, and we have forms on the fly, it's called, out there, and the Real Estate Commission supplies those forms for us, and they all been gone through many times to make sure that everything is in there. Real estate buyer or tenant, you have on page 395. This is one of the forms that they have, and it just explains both broker who lists the property for the sale or leasee. It's got all the information down there for that. So you just look that over. It's just another form. Here's another form, information for prospective real estate seller or landlord. Okay. So again, it says who is the agency here. Oh, look at those cute little doggies. Seller disclosure statement. Okay. Seller disclosure statement. Detailed disclosures of the property defects. Okay. On forms often produced by a real estate trade association. Okay. So this is the disclosure form. It's usually 3 to 4 pages long. You'll have where it's all checked. Say, okay, how do you know of any roof damage? Yes or no? How old is HVAC? Does a refrigerator work? I mean, just list all the way down. And I don't actually have this form. If I had more time, I'd show it to you. But again, it discloses everything about the house, what the age of it is, what the age of different things are, like the HVAC. How old is it? Do you know any leaking occurring within the building? Just all the way through. Additional agency information. Interstate land disclosure statements. Okay. Antitrust laws. You have price fixing and boycotting. And then we have the errors in emission insurance again. Price fixing. 2 or more people conspiring to charge a fixed fee, having an anti-competitive effect. Okay. Oh, anti-competitive effect. Sorry about that. So what they had was a group of brokers at a luncheon that they had, and there was a person there that was serving. Well, the person that was serving actually heard them talking about commission rates in that area. Well, lo and behold, that server called the real estate commission and told them that these brokers were there talking about commission rates and price fixing. Okay? There's a couple of them that actually lost their brokerage, and they got charged some between $50,000 and $100,000. You cannot talk about commission rates with other people trying to do a price fixing. The commission will put you out of business very quickly and sue you. It's amazing the amount of money that they can sue. And then you have boycotting, 2 or more people conspiring to retrain competition. Okay, restrain. Sorry, these words sometimes jump around on it. Restrain competition by boycotting. Oh, I'm not going to use that different agency because they're not good or whatever else. You can't tell your clients that. You can't say that somebody else is not good or whatever else, because that's actually a part of boycotting. So we don't do that. And then again, they talk about errors and omissions insurance here. So we had the key terms: agent, boycotting, commingling. We went through those. Let's go to the chapter 21, and guess what? Chapter 21 code word is rules. Okay? Chapter 21 code word is rules. Alright. So, I would say all the 3 words again, but I think you guys will understand what it means. So, number 1 on review questions. When an agent is given the right to transact all types of matters on behalf of the principal, the agent serves as a C. Okay? It's the letter C, universal agent. Number 2, agents who are authorized to bind their employer in a trade or business are, and that's B, general agents. Number 3, the relationship of a real estate broker to the owner of property listed for sale with the broker is that of a, and that's D, special agent. Number 4, an agent's authority may be granted by, and we're looking at C there, both A and B, written agreement and custom in the industry. All right. Number 5, when an agent's authority arises from custom in the industry, it is identified as, and we're looking at A, implied authority. Okay. So please do the rest of these questions for homework. Again, they're going to be coming up on your next test, which is going to be test 4. Again, we'll have all the review questions. There's going to be a few in there on test 4, but also we have the test bank that I use a few. Since you guys are taking these tests at home, we don't want to give everything to you as easy as hand feeding. So we get questions from all different areas. But that was chapters 19, 20, and 21. You have the code words. I just hope everybody is doing well, staying safe, and look forward to speaking to you soon. And good luck on your next test. I will be giving an email about it coming up. And again, thank you for turning in all of the projects. They look great. I'm going to be putting those grades out there this weekend. And I just hope to see you soon. Have a great day. Bye-bye.